Good morning and happy Sunday fun day, everyone. Welcome to Talking Stock with Ryan Kalata, where we talk the good talk. Not sure how much attention you folks have been paying since the last episode, but for those who pay very close attention, you might recall that on Friday's episode, I had said that I had needed to go to the kitchen to go get something. Like after I had already gotten back from my half hour lunch, I had mentioned that I needed to go to the kitchen to go get something, and then I never went to the kitchen and got what I needed to get. And now I just remembered what it was that what it was that I needed to go get from the kitchen. You see, like what happens is that I went on my half hour lunch. Like when I leave the studio and you guys get to listen to some music in the background, you get a little exposure to the type of music that I like to listen to. You get exposed to the cool stuff that I like and maybe some of my guilty pleasures, like talking about the type of stuff that you would almost never guess that I actually like to listen to. Like it's some of the stuff that you guys probably see and the way the playlist goes from one song to another. I'm like, how the fuck did you go from this to this? And then and wait a sec, you actually like this kind of stuff? Like you guys get a little exposure to some of like and that's what I mean by guilty pleasure. Like some of the stuff that, it's like you like the song, but a lot of other people don't. So you're almost like you're guilty of liking it. But I've always had, my entire life, I've always had great taste in music. I mean, even when I was younger, I remember like, one of the things that my father said to me, at a very early age is that I have better taste in music than most people that he knows. And this is talking about going back to when I was just a kid, talking about like how like hold on, let me just check. Going back to like it going back to like going back to when I was just a kid. Like my father always said to me that yeah, I had greater taste in music than most people that he knew. Sorry about before. I just had to check on Facebook to see if it was actually filming. I mean, I don't know, I think there's this thing where every single time I go live, I always have to toggle with the settings and change it from because there was one time, I think it was the first official live episode that I did where it wasn't even recording me on Facebook at all. And what it was doing was is that maybe if I keep it open the whole time, I can monitor it more closely. I'm sorry, but it's just okay. So it is publicly filming, which is good because I just, the first time around when I was filming, I wasn't even like doing it at all. And I found out that what it was is that when I started filming it for whatever reason, it does this default setting where it sets the privacy settings to only me. So the whole entire like 2 hour session it was, people didn't even get to see me live at all. I mean, I know like most people who watch podcasts most likely don't view it live. Like they'll watch it like after the fact that it's already aired. But for people that want to watch it live, there's a lot of perks and benefits to it, and one of which is being able to do a little live chat. Which I mean, and the disadvantage to the whole live chat is that some platforms support it, some don't. The feature's called Omni Chat. It's pretty much an integrated feature where live streamers like Facebook and YouTube, among others, all the information that you type, I get to see live on the air. Other smaller platforms, I have to check it manually just to see like as to like who's tuning in and who isn't. And I'm still learning, a lot of this stuff. I mean, it's on the fourth episode, and it's just and I must say, and I'm sure you guys will probably all agree that I'm doing great with this, especially given the fact that I'm like the only person I'm self-producing all this. So you have to say that for content that is self-produced, you know it's, this is this is some this is pretty good. I'm doing pretty good, but all right. So now back on to what I was gonna say. So the other day, like, I had said on Friday that I needed to go into the kitchen to go grab something. I would be right back, but I never went into the kitchen to go and grab it. But now I remembered what I wanted to go in and grab, and it's more so I could show people as to an idea that I want to do. Like one thing I've been wanting to do for a while is, for those who I'm not friends with on any social media platform, whether it's that we work together frequently or just not friends on any social media platform. There's folks out there that don't use like Facebook and Instagram, but they might go on YouTube to watch stuff, or they might, listen to stuff on Spotify or whatever. So, so like that's why, some people that, I may not be friends with, or there's also some folks that I know in real life that I'm just not friends with on any like social media platform. And with that, with everyone that I'm friends with on every social media platform, I won't need to do this, because if you're friends on social platform, pretty much everybody should have gotten an invitation to follow my Facebook page for Talking Stock, and a lot of you folks did. Some of you didn't, but if you want to follow it, or you'll get to it when you can. I mean, again, a lot of people get so many invites from so many different pages because people launch all these Facebook pages and they want you to follow them. And I follow probably just about every invitation that I get. I also don't know how often some people check Facebook. Some check it more than others. So that's another thing that comes into play too. And yeah, so basically, like, when it comes down to people who, like, who I'm not friends with on any social media, like I was saying before, whether they're like, whether they're coworkers, whether they're people that I know that I'm not friends with on any social media platform, or there's also a lot of times like there'll be people who I'll meet for like a day, and I'll get to like, you know, start chatting it up with them. I feel like I made a new friend, but then, you may never see that person again. It could be somebody at a party, it could be somebody that you're working with, it could be somebody that you just start talking to somewhere, and you want to tell them that you have a podcast. But like the thing is though, is that like if you tell people that you have a podcast and what the name of it is, if they're not going home at that very moment, or they're not about to just whip out their phone to see as to like what they're to see as to what my podcast is, or put it in their phone, chances are they'll forget. So what I did is I wrote down on a piece of paper the name of my podcast and various ways to watch it. I'll show you an example of what I'm talking about right now. I don't know how well you could see it. I don't know how well this camera pans in on it. Let me just see if. I don't know how well. I don't know how well you guys could see that. Maybe you could see it well, maybe not. But regardless of how well you could see it, or maybe how well you can't see it, pretty much ultimately what I did is I wrote down the name of my podcast. I wrote down the various social media platforms that I'm on with the podcast, and I wrote down ways in which you could watch it. Like for some of them, I just wrote down the name of the account, like the name of like the channel, like the name of the username that you would look up to watch this. Others, I gave instructions to type in the name of my podcast, look it up. Like I know with YouTube, I put my YouTube username. I told them to go under where it says podcast, and and watch it that way. And now, if you're wondering, like, why the hell did you take all this time and write a bunch of and take a piece of paper and write down a bunch of ways to watch your podcast and have so many of them on you? And the reason is because so that people who I'm not friends with on social media, or people that that I'm friendly with, that I want them to see my podcast, or someone who I just met, and you tell them about yourself and you tell them that you have a podcast, and you want them to be able to see your podcast, the only way you can get it out there is, you see, here's the thing: if you write something down on a piece of paper and you hand it to somebody, they're less likely to forget than if you just tell them. Because if you're having a conversation with someone, you're at a Starbucks online with someone, you're at a party with someone, you're working with someone, and they're not, and their shift doesn't end till 11 o'clock at night. Just because your shift ends at 11 o'clock at night doesn't mean you're necessarily going home. Like, I don't know what you have going on with your life. I mean, I don't know if you're going home right afterwards. I don't know if you have a party to go to afterwards. I don't know where you have to be at whatever time. But the thing, though, is that, like, people become very forgetful of things. And I'm like that myself, too. I mean, look what happened the other day. I'm a busy person myself, too. I'm working two jobs, I'm doing side gigs. I'm filming a podcast at the same time. There's also a lot of prep work that goes into the whole podcast thing too, like all the editing and all the other stuff that I got to do behind the scenes just to even get ready to even film this thing. And you know, I'm quite shot. I'm fucking shot myself, with all this, but I'm doing it for a good reason. I'm passionate about what I do. I like doing my podcast thing, even though, of course, as you know, and anyone who's a digital creator, anyone who has a podcast knows that they have to be susceptible to criticism. And with criticism, I mean any form of criticism. It could be constructive criticism, which is only there to help you, not hurt you, even though it sounds like they're trying to hurt you. Could be actual criticism, people saying, like, your podcast sucks and whatnot. Or it could also just be like ideas on what you could do better. And I'm very open to ideas. You throw an idea out there of what I want to do, or come up with any kind of suggestion. I listen to your suggestions. The only thing that I really don't like, and the only thing I really, can't stand out of anything is, putting words into my mouth, which is the one thing that you don't do, is you don't put words into my mouth in terms of, this is how you're going to do it. This is how it's going to have to be. Nope. You can come up with suggestions. You can come up with advice all you want. But who's going to be the one that makes the ultimate decision? Me. Who's going to be the one that decides how it goes? Me. Who's going to be the one that influences me? Me. And if anyone wants to work with me, I'll work with just about anybody. My first episode of this, I had somebody reach out to me saying that I wish there was more podcasts like yours, and gave me, like, his contact information. And as for that person, I will get back to you. You are on my laundry list of people to get back to, but I have a few others that reached out as well, and I got to get back to everybody. Again, one, this is only the fourth episode. Two, it's just I'm just I'm still, sort of trying to establish myself in a way too that I'm sort of still trying to establish myself as well. Like, as you know, like, I want to decorate this place, and I want to get some cool decor so that you could, because I know one thing that a lot of people like when they watch a podcast. One thing that draws a lot of people in is when you see a lot of decor in the background. Like, as you know, this room that I film my podcast in, which I like to call it the stock room, in lieu of the name Talking Stock. I figured I'd come up with a creative name in terms of the place of where I film this podcast, because see, the room that I film it in is a bedroom, but it's divided by, like maybe a good 25-35% of it is where I'm filming this podcast, and the other part of it is the bedroom part, which is pretty much the sleeping space of me, Ryan Kalata. A hard day's work needs a good night rest, so we all gotta sleep. So I gotta have some sort of sleeping space. And if you notice, like, you probably notice in the background, like right over here, you probably notice right over there that there's that little bar barrier thing in the background. That thing is it, that bar barrier thing that you're looking at is a room divider, and what it ultimately does is it allows you to, like, take a room and divide it into two rooms without having to put any walls up. So ultimately what's going to happen is that I'm going to, you see, right now is that, like, I got rent due on the first. So between now and, the first of the month, I'm going to be working towards, like, paying off my rent. But once the rent's paid off, I'm going to go out and that's when I'm going to go and get, the core stuff needed for my podcast. And one of them is I'm going to get that will go right over here. See, the curtains are going to be what divides the filming space from the sleeping space in the bedroom part of it. And the good thing about these room dividers too is that you're splitting a room in half, but you're not putting any walls up. So, and the good thing about these room dividers is that it's disassemblable, which means that when the time comes that when it comes time in a couple of years, when I move out of here and I buy a house, all I have to do is take it apart, so that this way it's, when the time comes that, when the time comes that, if and when I, leave this place, in a couple of years, all I have to do is disassemble. I mean, as of right now, I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. Probably going to be here for at least, another couple of years. But, you know, I like where I'm at. I like the place that I'm at, and so I have no intent on making any changes. But what I'm just saying is that the good thing about it being disassemblable is that when it comes time to start packing up, all I got to do is take it apart. Once this podcast starts to expand and I get a broader audience, and if I start, and once I start making money off of this, I've even thought about the possibility of renting a studio, of renting a, like a little like office somewhere, wherever, like I can film this, like I like with inside a building. You have like those big sweet buildings that oftentimes have doctors' offices, lawyers, politicians' offices, etc. I figured I could rent one of those offices and use that as the podcast filming studio. I have no plan. I'm not looking to rent any space to film this right now. I'm just planning on filming it right here, but I'm just saying that that's, a possibility. And when it comes down to what kind of cool decor that I want to go and get for, when it comes down to what kind of cool decor I want to get towards, I want to get towards decorating this podcast is, you see, one thing is when a lot of people, watch a podcast is they like, is when they're watching the podcast itself, they like to see a lot of the cool stuff that's in the background. Like a lot of times, if there's, some kind of like cool, like, movie, TV posters, of your favorite bands, your favorite, singers, your favorite rappers in the background. Also the cool decor, in the background of the room. You have a picture of something, like if you have a picture of, like, of like a lake house cabin, that might draw people in. You have a picture of like a beach house, that might draw people in. But when you have like any kind of decorations in the background, that draws people in. Right now, I mean, when you're filming a podcast, it's really not that big of a deal where you film, because but the thing is, by making it more presentable, you draw more people in. Like where I'm at right now, like in this little room, it almost looks as if that, I mean, you may agree, you may disagree, but it looks as if the room where I'm filming this podcast is ultimately, it's like, as opposed to filming a live stream, I more or less look as if I just hopped on a Zoom call. And, like, you see, the thing is, like, when you're hopping on a Zoom call, whether it's work related or it's, telemedicine related, usually, you normally don't care about the space in the background, because you're just there to talk. And, a lot of times people, when they would do like Zoom calls, they'll do it from their kitchen, they'll do it from their living room, but I want this place to look nice. I don't want it looking like, like I'm filming in some kind of dungeon or whatever. I'm not saying it's the vibe you get, but you see what I'm saying. I What I'm going to do right now is I'm just going to periodically check on some of my socials to see as to what's going on, because not every single, I mean, so far no one's really tapped anything in the Omni chat feature, but I like to, but with the forms of, with the platforms that don't support Omni Chat, I need to check, to see if anybody's typed anything. And it's I'm still like fairly new to this, so I don't really feel like I have a big enough live audience at the moment where enough people are live chatting. I know once I get a couple of thousand viewers, like daily viewers, should I say, I will have features where you could type in and I can respond to your questions in real time. You can ask me anything. You can just give a shout out. You could just say any kind of comments. I could be talking about a subject and you could just give your opinion and I'll respond back in real time. But right now I feel like right now it's just I'm still like I'm still basically establishing myself as a public figure. But there's something about the term public figure that whether you have whether your numbers in the tens, maybe you have hundreds, maybe you have thousands, you have tens of thousands, you have hundreds of thousands, you have millions, you're still what you call a public figure. And when you become a public figure, having having privacy and being incognito is no longer an option for yourself. Like I know in terms of being able to have this, see, in terms of like how my Facebook is that I created a Facebook page for my podcast, but the thing is I can't like have the feed go through it just yet because the page isn't old enough yet. But what's going to happen is starting the beginning of February, all talking stock related films are going to be filmed on the Facebook page of Talking Stock and not my personal Facebook. But for right now I have to do it that way. But in order for me to be able to film at all on Facebook, I think even when I do switch it is I have to have my profile open to public. I don't post anything controversial that would get myself, in any kind of like, trouble. I don't post anything controversial that, will stir the pot and, or could like, any form of like, controversial topic. So I have nothing really to worry about. In fact, I haven't even really been posting much on a lot of these social platforms because, aside from when I'm working, I've been doing a lot of prep to prepare for other stuff too. I mean, now that I'm going to become more well known, I'm going to have to like use other socials too. I mean, after a while, I'm probably going to have to hire someone to handle my socials, talking about like my other socials, like my Twitter/X profile. I mean, I'm not going to be creating content for there, but I will be, I will have stuff on there and that'll probably help draw in some viewership, which I'll be happy about. Look, I'm not like, a hardcore, opportunist here. I don't go wherever the wind blows. I do what's right for myself. And I just feel like, and what I mean by that is that, like, as I said before, I'm open to suggestions. I do what I feel is best. What I'm saying is, in terms of going like wherever the wind blows, is I'm gonna stick to I'm gonna stick to like what I feel is the best thing to do and what I feel is right. I'm not just gonna like just go and just like you know do something that I don't like to do just because it makes more money. If it's something I don't like to do, I'm just gonna immediately say no to it. But if it's something that I like doing and I might change my mind about something. Like I've changed my mind about several things over the years. Like, one thing I kind of regret doing in my life is this is not is the way I was like going back say 10 years ago is that I was like, a big critic of social media. Meanwhile, I always watch stuff on YouTube. I would watch people create all sorts of content on YouTube, but I never had nothing there was nothing in me that said I should start doing this too. And I wasn't on a lot of social platforms as well. I just felt that like at the time the one thing that I felt that turned me off from social media a decade ago is one thing I really couldn't stand is when a lot of people at around my age, felt that they were hot shit because they had all sorts of social medias. Like, I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram, I have a Twitter, I have a Snapchat, I have, and all these other features, and nobody else gave a shit but them. But I just feel like as time went on, I felt that I needed to be on social media because I felt like I was, I mean, I know I'm not the only one not using it, but I just felt like I wasn't in touch with the rest of the world, and I just felt that I needed to go on. I I needed to. Well, I had already had a Facebook account, but I stopped using it. Then I recreated a new one. Then I started using it. Then I joined Instagram. I'm still not on a large number of platforms, but I mean, again, there's some platforms like, I mean, one like TikTok. I think I'm gonna start posting on. I mean, and other platforms as well. But that I'm not on. But what I'm going to end up doing is that I just felt that what I needed to do was I needed to go out there and do like because it was really the only way for me to keep in touch with a lot of people because by the time I rejoined Facebook again, I don't. I think it was either 2015, 2016. I don't really remember when, but by that point in time, there was already a lot of old coworkers that I didn't see anymore because I didn't work with anymore. There were a lot of people that I went to school with that I didn't see because it had been a while since I. By that point, I had been out of school for years, and I hadn't seen a lot of people that I used to go to school with, and I wanted to like reconnect with all of them. I wanted to see what everyone was up to. I wanted to tell them about what was going on in my life. I just feel like all these years of ignoring social media, I just feel like all I did was I lost touch with a lot of people that like and yeah and there's something about like every chapter of my life is that I have people that I've never lost touch with, and I've had people that I lose touch with. Like when it came down, like whether it's like my days in school, my days of working, all the numerous jobs I've had over time. There's people that I talk to, and there's people that I don't talk to, and it just happens like over time. It all depends on what type of person you are. Like you message me, I'll message you back. But not everyone's like that. Some of these people out here are just so very shallow minded, and it just comes down to that they're more about themselves than anything else. They could care less about, past memories of you and them and all that other stuff. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, because sometimes the unfortunate truth is you don't always know what somebody's like as a person. Because you only know them from your days at work. You only know them from school. You only know this and that about them, and this even includes when hanging out with them. Sometimes you don't know someone's true character until you're so far along in the friendship. And I'm sure a lot of you people listening to this might have had times where you've had to cut people out of your life because you really you know what it is. You realize after a while that not everyone that comes into your life is your friend, and that's 100% true. Hold on one second. I'm going to do a little check to see as to like what's going on with everyone that comes into your life. Just doing a little check to see like what's going on with all my feeds. I have to do this every so often because not every feed's supported by OmniChat, and I also need to check on the whole Facebook thing being obnoxious is a little ridiculous. I mean, I'm not saying it's being obnoxious, but I'm saying in the sense that like I have to make sure that it's not setting, the audience to only me. Like right now I'm looking and the good thing is that it says that my audience is public. Like, all right, so it says edit audience, select your audience. Reels can appear in feed, watch, and other places across Facebook. And you have your options. You have public, you have your friends, I have this distribution list of because there was a time where there's certain people I didn't want to see certain content, but that list of people is old, so I disregard that. And then there's only me. The thing is that the past few times that I've been starting my live streams, the default setting has been only me, and then I've had to change it to public so that people can actually see all this. If I have to keep doing this every time, it's going to be a bit tedious, but if this is what I have to do, I just have to make it as part of a routine. You see, what I've learned over the past few episodes of filming this is how to be better with like self production, how to like be more, like as I've said before, and as I have posted on just about every website, and I've been probably a little more redundant about it than I should be, is the whole entire filming times at 11 a.m. Eastern time. Is that what was I gonna say again? I'm sorry. Just all right, let me just lost my train of thought here. No, I mean, like, what I was saying before is how, like, my podcast starts at 11 a.m. But that doesn't mean that I log on to the computer at 10:58 a.m. and get everything ready. If I'm going to be filming at 11 or whatever time I got to be filming, I feel like I got to start my computer up and have everything up and running at least a half an hour prior to that. Because what happens is that, you know, out of all the, platforms that are supported by the software program that I use, I don't have to manually input the stream keys into it. But with some of the platforms that are not supported by it, which are a lot of smaller platforms, I have to manually input the stream key each time I film this. And Instagram is surprisingly one of those platforms. Now, I don't know out of all platforms out there why Instagram would be one of them that is not part of where you put it into, like where you can sync the live feed to it. I mean, ones like TikTok, are one of them, but you need to have a certain number of followers. And, Twitter, also known as X, I refer to it as both because I don't know what you refer to it as. So, but, since that's something I would never, I would, that's the least thing I could be arguing about right now. I still refer to it as, I mean, I personally still call it Twitter, but some people call it X. That's why I say Twitter/X. But there's all sorts of requirements that you have to meet in order to be able to do it. And ever since I think it became X, I can't even I don't even know if I can private message, if I can DM people the way I used to in beforehand. Because the other day what I was doing is I was looking at my old Twitter profile to see as to who I was following and who I'm still following, because I'm trying to get everybody to migrate over to my new account. And so and I was looking at some of the stuff I used to post, and this is only just going back to as recent as 2019. I'm thinking to myself, what kind of stuff was I posting? And it's just, I mean, I wasn't posting anything bad, but I'm just saying to myself that it's some of the stuff I was saying, some of the stuff I was doing was is not something I would say today. And it's just, because what I'm eventually going to be doing is I'm going to be shutting my old account down so that everybody can come over to my new one. The one that I set up a little over a year ago, and that's more or less going to be my public figure account. It's going to be used for both personal and professional purposes, because Twitter's, X is not my type of platform that not my one of my main platforms I'm going to be using. Is I'm going to have I'm going to have that up out there so that because you reach people that way, and it's all about you know reaching people. And I just think that with my podcast being mostly within my within my social network, I think that getting the views that I get, even though I'm probably getting views from the outside world too, from outside of my circle, I think I'm doing quite well. Because you got to remember too, out of everybody who you're friends with and who's a fan of it, everybody has their own viewing habits. I think a lot of the most of the views I get on my podcast, whether it's unique views or returning visits, all come from people who are not watching it live. And same thing goes with people who have subscribers to some of these social media content creators who already have millions of subscribers. Each every subscriber type is different. Out of some of these people that have all these hundreds of thousands or millions of subscribers, which are people who you know aren't necessarily celebrities and may live within your neighborhood, and you just don't know it, because you wouldn't think that someone who has all these subscribers to like a platform like YouTube would be a middle class citizen that lives right next door to you. But the truth is they probably are. But it depends on how well known you are. There's so many well known people that not everyone knows who they are. Like, if I eventually become famous enough that I get recognized, I probably they'll there's going to be times where I'll go into a store and no one will say a thing to me because no one's going to know who I am. But I'd rather have that type of recognition than to be like, famously known. I don't want to be someone like Brad Pitt that everyone knows who you are. That you have to send all these secret shoppers out to there. I don't want to be the target of violence where I have to feel like I need, I feel like I need like protection around me, and to avoid me from being like, attacked or anything. I mean, all right, to make it clear, I am not worried the least bit about that happening, but you get what I'm saying here. So let me just check on some of my other feeds. See, the thing is, the fact of the matter is that what I should really do is I should really suggest to the program that I use that they integrate this recording into more of them so I don't have to manually enter the stream keys every time. I mean, it's not the most annoying thing. It's only maybe two, maybe three out of them, but still it's like if I could reach people and not have to do that every time, that'll be great. If every single response that people give is all in one area and everyone that's tuned in I could see it all on the screen. I mean, I could see it with the platforms that support it, but I'm talking about the ones that don't support it. Then I could do it without having to toggle between things. And I've learned to toggle between looking at it through my phone rather than looking at the web browser, because with the web tabs, it's got to open up another tab, and then I can't see as to what am I doing, and I don't as to what I'm doing, and I don't even know if the camera's filming my face or not. Like, I just gotta, like, it's technology is complicated. Now I know why some people hate technology, because I mean it can be a real pain in the ass, and anyone who says that, I'll agree with. If you say technology is such a pain in the ass, I'll have to agree with you on that, because I like you've probably seen sometimes I've had episodes where it lags, and me being self-producing this whole thing, I've learned over time. I mean, I've had probably like two episodes so far where I didn't hit. One thing I learned is that I have to hit the record button before I even start the theme song to my podcast. And then like the whole entire. One of these days, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a little behind the scenes video of how I film my podcast. But right now it's still like the early days of it, and I think the fact that I'm already getting, that my first episode, I got, feedback saying that, like, I wish there was more podcasts like yours, only comes to show that, I think I'm doing more right than I am wrong, which is good. I want to hear that I'm doing things right. I don't want to hear that, that with my podcast being as new as it is, that it's already like, not doing so great. I mean, I want to hear, I only want to hear good stuff. I don't want to hear anything. Well, that's everybody. So I'm just stating the obvious here. So why don't I stop stating the obvious and just get on to what else I want to say? It's just, another thing. The one feed that I've been wanting to look at the whole time. Okay, so I got people watching in. It's just a little periodic check. It's all I do. I have to check in every so often and just see as to where I'm at with all this stuff. And oh, you know, since well, yeah. Another thing too is that I'm also seeing is that like it is that I got to tell myself to just like not go off script, which it's a hard thing to do because once you get on one subject, you can very easily get off script, and it's like that's one thing I have to be prepared for too. Like is that if someone asks me a question live on air, I will end up probably going off script because of the fact that someone asks me something that's totally not related to anything I wanted to discuss today, but I just, it's they're my fans. I got to answer them, in real time, and I'll answer them. I'll have the same outermost respect as I would to, anyone that I know, and my friends, my family. I always say, I want to treat people the way they want to treat me, and that's how I want to be. And okay, so in terms of what kind of decor do I want to have like in this type of place? I don't remember if I mentioned it in one of my previous episodes. I think I'm pretty sure I did. Maybe I didn't, but see, what I want to do is I want to have like, see, when I was in Target the other night, when I was getting Christmas gifts, and I was also grabbing a few essentials that I needed for my apartment, I noticed like, that there was some stuff that, I mean, some of the stuff I saw I already had in mind, and some of the stuff that was there was stuff that I wasn't previously thinking of that caught my eye that that I wanted to grab. But the only reason why I didn't grab it is also because, as I said before, rent is coming up, soon. And once the rent's paid off, then I can go and spend my money on other things. But I got to make sure that I get that taken care of first. Now, am I worried about it? No, I'll make it through rent just fine. But what I'm saying is that like I just have to make sure that the money's there to pay it, and I can't just go and spend money like I'm not a billionaire here. I'm a middle class like working citizen, so I can't just go and spend my money like I don't have dollars to blow. Like a lot of people, paycheck to paycheck. But what I saw when I was shopping is that I saw, a lava lamp, which is something I always had in mind in terms of I maybe want to put some of them, put like a little table lined up with all the decor. I want, it's stuff like lava lamp. I also saw that they had like this like, projector, like it was like basically like a little projector that, it has like a bunch of like images. Like I think it has like it has like stars. It has like little like it basically kind of has like a little like like slideshow kind of like it lights up the room, which I think will be helpful in terms of one, it will make it look nice, and two, it'll make the place a little less dark because the one thing that's lighting this place up more than anything is the lamp that's on my desk. If it wasn't for that, we'd be in complete darkness and it would look like I'm filming in a dungeon. I don't think it looks that way, but I'm just saying that like excuse me, it really would if that was the case. And so and I want to have that. What I also want to do too is one of the couches that I have, like you see in the living room part of my apartment, i have I have two couches. I have two of the couches. I have like, you see, when my parents moved into their current house, they noticed that the couches, and like and the rocking chair that they had from my old patchwork house when we were growing up, which at the time when they moved into their new house, that furniture was only a year old. But they saw that the couch and the rocking chair did not match the room, so they decided they were going to get new furniture. So what they did was they figured like, what are we going to do with all this? And they said, oh, we'll just give it to Ryan, and they gave it to me, and so now I have like extra furniture. But before that, the only thing I had was like a little couch that you sit on, which is actually a pretty old one because it goes back to probably before I was even born. It was in my uncle's house. Like, I think it was in like the basement part of his house, and I think that's where my cousins used to like hang out. I think it was like their little couch that they would sit on, I guess, when they'd watch TV or play video games or whatever they had going on in the basement. I mean, I know I went over to their house a lot when I was a kid, but I just don't remember what exactly it was there for. But I'm pretty sure I remember it as being like, a video gaming kind of couch. I don't really know. I mean, if any of my cousins are watching this, you could probably like, right now you could answer my question, in real time if you wish, or if not, I'll just next time I see you, I'll ask you about what exactly that couch was. Well, actually, I think that might have actually been the living room couch too. Their living room when at one point in time. And then it got moved to the basement. And then when I was living at my house in Patchogue many years ago, I wanted a I needed a new couch for the bedroom that I was sleeping in. So what we did was is we put the old couch, which had seen its better days, by the curb. I think I took a picture, took a little selfie, or I had my parents, take a picture of me on that couch. I have that somewhere. I think I'm gonna show that to you guys in a future episode when it comes time to decorate this place. I'm gonna show you, like, the type of couch that I was sitting on in my old bedroom at the old house, and me in front of the curb sitting on it, as if, like, that was like my way of saying bye bye to it. But I just figured I'd sit on it one last time before the garbage men come and take it. And or maybe not even the garbage men, maybe just like the people that take stuff that's by the curb, which I've actually done that before too. Like, there was a time where someone was getting rid of an office chair, and like what I did was, is at the time, this was when I had my first car, my Jeep Cherokee. I had the space to put it in the back, so on the next block over from mine, someone's getting rid of an office chair that they don't want, and it still works just fine. But the thing is, the fabric is all like, was all like, you know it had seen its better days. I mean, it wasn't like a total shit show. It wasn't like, it wasn't like it was totally, it wasn't like one of those things that if you sit on, it's gonna break at any minute. But it was one of those things that it had seen its better days. And but they may have only just gotten rid of it because they just got new office, furniture, or I don't know these people, so I don't know as to why maybe they just threw it out because they just didn't want it. I don't fucking know these people, but anyway, I just took the chair, put it in the back of my car. Then when I went home, brought it upstairs, and put it as like my, room chair, computer chair. I don't remember what I was using it for, but and my late younger brother had done something similar. There was a time where a house down the street of ours had done something similar, and they took it and brought it back in. I mean, not everything that people put by the curb is necessarily garbage. I mean, if you ever heard the saying, one man's trash is another man's treasure, that's basically what the situation is in a lot of these cases. One man's trash is another man's treasure. And it's not treasure if it's a piece of crap. So, so good stuff can be trash, and to other people, it's their treasure. Some of the stuff that I have that I use is stuff that I've taken from people's curbs and put it in my car. In fact, there's times where I've been tempted to do it more recently, but now that that I drive for Uber and Lyft, it becomes harder to do because I just don't know where to put it. I mean, like, every time I go out and do Uber and Lyft, I have to have my car ready for if I have, four passengers, which I occasionally do, because my car could fit four people. So, I mean, most of the time when I pick people up, I don't have a group of four, but I do, and I oftentimes have to be ready for if I do. There was one time, I mean, most of the passengers I have, with Uber and Lyft are pretty cool, but every once in a while I deal with a lot of folks well, not a lot of them. I deal with some folks that are just complete assholes. Like, I just dealt with one the other day. So I was like, for those of you who know Long Island, know where Valley Stream is. It's like the westernmost point of Nassau County on like the northern part of the South Shore. So I go and pick some guy up and take him to JFK Airport. What happens is that he has luggage. I mean, well, first of all, I get the vibe that this guy's probably like, a complete dickhead from like the start. So I go to the location that he has pinpointed on the map. He comes towards me waving his phone. He has his luggage all lined up at a couple of houses down the road. I don't know if maybe it pinpointed me to the wrong house, or it just, or he was just happened to be down the street from the location that I picked him up in. But he's already being like, he's coming off like this vibe, like, it's just, well, the first thing I did was I popped the trunk, and I had like, see, what I had in the back of it is, that Rachel Ray cookware that I got for Christmas. When I came home Christmas night, I was too tired. Well, what happened was is I brought some of my gifts in, and I said to myself that with the Rachel Ray cookware, because I couldn't bring every gift in at once. I put everything in a big box, and I could only carry so much at one time. So I went back there. So I went in and I brought in the stuff in the box that I was able to bring in. But now for the Rachel Ray cookware, my plan was is that I was gonna go back down and grab it, but I was too tired for the night, so I decided, you know what, I'll just grab it tomorrow. And then tomorrow meant that by the time I was, went out and started doing gigs, I still had it on me. And one person even said that, like, I mean, this person, is not the person I'm talking about. It was a couple of passengers I had before said, "You got some cookware right there." I mean, that in other words, like it's fancy like Rachel Ray cookware. So in other words, it's like people are thinking that like like I'm some sort of like chef, and I'm like, yeah, I got it as a Christmas gift. And then what ended up happening is there was one part of it where I had earlier that night I had four people, so that's how I had to even move it from the front seat of the car, because I needed to have a passenger, to the trunk of the car. And then I had to like, and then I ended up like, when I had that, asshole that I had to take to JFK, I had to like take that, put it in there so that he can have room for his luggage. And he ended up having room for most of his luggage, except some of his luggage he had to put in the back seat. Wherever you need to put your luggage. Look, I'm very laid back. I don't care where you have to put it. I don't care if you immediately assume that I'm going to pop the trunk, because I will. I'm not a dick. But at the same exact time, it's just this person from the very start. It's like I got this, bad vibe from the very beginning about this person, like just from the very start. And then, so then what happens is, his his luggage is all in the back. The stuff he couldn't fit in the back is in like is on like one of the is in the back seat along with so then what happens is I start the trip and we're heading towards JFK. So which coming from Valley Stream, you get on to the southern state, and then what happens is the southern state splits between, you can head northward and go on the Cross Island Parkway, or you can head southward and go on the Belt Parkway, which for those of you, which the Belt Parkway, as we all know, like, if you're on the Belt Parkway during non-essential like business hours, it's really not that bad of a ride. But for those who have to commute on it, it's a complete clusterfuck. You go on the Belt Parkway during late night hours. There's traffic, but it's not that bad. You go on the belt at 4 o'clock in the morning on a weekday, like, because when me and my late younger brother used to take it to go to Six Flags, we would get on the belt and we'd be on it by like, we'd be on the belt by like no later than like 5 or 6 in the morning. We'd get to Six Flags hours before it opens, and we'd be like some of the people lined up at the door waiting for them to open the gates. But the thing is that like, even though we got there early enough, at least we beat traffic. Now, if you're on the Bell Parkway on like on Monday at like 8 o'clock in the morning, that's when it's a complete clusterfuck. Back when we were living like at my old house, at the time, it like because my father works in pharmaceutical sales. At the time, his territory had like doctors' offices in Brooklyn. There's times where he it would take him 3 hours to get home from Brooklyn to where we were living in Patchogue. And that was all from sitting in traffic on the Belt Parkway. And I got to see it firsthand, not long ago, like, a couple of years ago in summer 2021, when I went to the Brooklyn Aquarium and Coney Island, and we're on our way home, and I saw like how bad it was. And now I understood where people came from when they were talking about how much of a clusterfuck the Belt Parkway will be. And anyone in New York City people, or anyone that's taken the belt that's listening, will agree with me on this. But anyway, back to the asshole passenger. All right, so we're on our way there, and all of a sudden, like, I'm getting off at this one exit, which does take us to JFK. And he's wondering, are we going to JFK? And I'm like, yeah, I'm just following the map. I mean, the navigation system the Uber like navigation map navigation system that they use, that's what I follow. I hate when these people like to try to play backseat driver. Like I'm following the map that it says. I mean, just because you know how to get there doesn't mean like I necessarily know. I mean, I've done plenty of JFK trips, and let me tell you, I mean, it's not like my favorite place to drop people off, especially right now where they're doing all this work in the terminal. It's a total clusterfuck. It's because what they're looking to do right now is they're looking to turn it into some sort of like futuristic kind of looking like airport. But the thing is, with all the work that they're doing, is that depending on what time you're dropping somebody off, you could be sitting there for hours. I had a group of people. I had, I think it was two guys that I was dropping off one time to go fly at JFK, and we were sitting in traffic for so long that we came to the conclusion that they said it would be better off if I just let them off on the side and they would walk there themselves. I say that's not a bad idea. So I let them off. I make sure they have everything and they're on their way to go, and even I had to sit in traffic on the way out of the airport because the way they're redoing it is just for anyone who's flown out of JFK recently, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about, or have dropped people off from there. But anyway, back onto the asshole passenger. So then I get to the JetBlue gate, which is where I let him off at. And since I don't pull exactly up to the curb, he's like, you can't just pull up to the curb. He's like, jeez. He just has like this attitude problem, and he's very lucky that I'm a laid back kind of guy because with having an asshole attitude like that, I'd have every right to just throw him out. And that's what I think, and if I ever stumble upon anyone who's like that, I might just start refusing the ride. You're gonna be an asshole to me, I'll just refuse your ride. And I don't know exactly what my code of conduct is in terms of that, but I believe that I, as the driver, reserve the right to do that. I mean, I've never had to do that so far, but I'm just saying that, like, he was just completely like, and I wanted to say stuff that, like, and I couldn't say what I wanted to say because if I had said if by the time I let him off and I had to, like, oh, just let him off by the curb because he just has to be let off by the curb, if I said to him what I wanted to say for him, I would have been deplatformed from Uber. And I can't have that happen. So that's why I didn't say, and you don't want to know what I was going to say to him because it's not something that I usually say, but it's pretty bad. So just keep it at that. Yeah, but most of my passengers are pretty chill. I mean, a lot of them I have like, pretty good conversations with. In fact, in regards to my podcast, I'm not going to be when it comes down to who I'm going to be handing out these type of slips to, it's not going to really be any of my Uber passengers. It's going to be mostly people that I know in real life. But here and there, if I have a good conversation with someone who's a good quality individual, I might do that. And from that point on, I just gained, another viewer. And I just think that that'll only be positive on my hands. The more people that tune in, the better. At least that's my words, and that's how I look at things. And this is a business. I want to grow my business. I have a business model that will be successful. It's just a matter of who it reaches. And I think I'm reaching a pretty good amount of people given the fact that, especially the fact that this is being done on just a self-produced podcast. It doesn't have any advertisements going. The only advertisements that have been that are like through my people on Facebook. There's probably been a few word of mouth going on about it, which if you spread the word about my podcast and got someone to listen to it, you have my appreciation. Just want to let you know that, right? If you're listening right there, that if you're someone who spread the word about my podcast, that you have my appreciation. That's the case. And speaking of Ubering, yeah, I was out doing it last night. You see, last night I was doing some administrative work related to like this podcast and all this other stuff because aside from filming it, there's a lot of administrative work that gets done on the site, and that takes time to do too. So it's like between that and wanting to spend time with family, spending time with friends, it's like you have a never-ending schedule that I kind of have. I have like a broken sleep cycle. Like the way I sleep is just totally like, if enough people like who are all about healthy sleep knew the way that I slept, they would say that you don't sleep healthy at all. But it's just because it's all over the place. I have my nights where I have my standard where I go to bed at maybe 10, 11 o'clock at night and wake up at a normal time. I have my times where I'm up at like 3 in the morning. I figure I just start my day, go out, do some gigs, do whatever. And then I have times where, like yesterday in particular, I stayed up late on Friday night because I was, in the middle of I don't even know if I was doing administrative work. I might have just been taking the few time out of my life to actually be able to relax. I don't remember what I was doing, but I slept in yesterday until 12 o'clock in the afternoon, which kind of fucked with everything. And it kind of got in the way of like, as to why, like, my day was very irregular in terms of how I do stuff, in terms of how things, are being done or should be done or whatever you want to call it. But anyways, it's just last night after I was around like a little before midnight, I signed on to like, to do Uber. I'm not getting any rides and I was hungry, so the first thing I do is I drive to Burger King and get myself something to eat. I get my little chicken fries and my French fries and my soda. I'm eating it like, in the parking lot. All of a sudden, I get a request. I pick somebody up. I take them to where they need to be. I get another request, pick them up. I pick someone up in Patchogue. I don't know what anyone was really doing out last night because it was like a rainy night, and usually shitty weather keeps people in, so it keeps people indoors and not so much going out. And this even includes like going out and taking Ubers. But I ended up like picking somebody up and taking them home to where they needed to be. I took one person to one part in Holbrook that's south of Vets Highway. I took somebody to one of the side streets off of Lincoln Avenue. And all of a sudden, what it does is that the app signs me off and says, about verifying your identity, which is a typical thing. Like what'll happen is that every so often, Uber, like either before you go on the app or sometimes in the middle of of your quest of driving people, pick people up and drop people off, it'll sign you out and it will make you confirm that it's you by taking a selfie. That's normal. And everyone who drives for them, will say the same too. But what ended up happening is that I was having some kind of glitch, like I had to call it a night earlier than usual last night because I was having this glitch where, see, what it did is it signed me off, like, after I dropped these, two people off. As I was saying, I dropped one person off, south of Vets Highway. I dropped someone off on north of Vets Highway, off of one of the streets on Lincoln Avenue. And what it did was, is that it was saying that and this glitch has happened, to me a few times, but never the way it happened to me last night, where it was saying that my vehicle is not eligible for the New York City suburbs. And I know damn well that that's a crock of shit because I've been driving for them since 2022. I've been driving for them, consistently since January or February of this year when I started driving for them a lot to start making, more money because that's when I started to see that DoorDash and Instacart were going like, downhill and I wasn't making enough money off of it. This is all on top of like my regular full-time job too, by the way. But, it's living on Long Island's expensive. Anyone who lives here will agree. Most people have to work more than one job. But anyway, back onto what I was gonna say is that I was having like this glitch where it was telling me that it was like, that my car wasn't eligible to go on there. So now I have to get on the phone with like, Uber support and like I'm on the phone with them and I tell them about the issue, we go on hold, we talk again, we're back on hold again. Apparently there was this thing where my vehicle was listed. They had, I was listed as having like five different vehicles, but they were all the same vehicle and they all had the same information. But somehow something must have happened where my car information must have gotten duplicated several times, and they had to like go in and manually, trim it down to only one car because I only use the only car I use to drive for them is my personal car. So I got to deal with that fiasco. And then after the call, what they wanted me to do is I needed to screenshot the issue, and send it to support. I also had to screenshot another issue is that see, because with my insurance policy is that is that my is that the insurance policy that I'm on right now lasts from started on July 1st and it lasts through January 1st, but because it's up for renewal, I mean, I have the renewal document of the upcoming policy that will start on January 1st and last through July 1st, and I uploaded it to them, and it still keeps reminding me that your insurance is about to expire in 4 days. I also had to bring that to their attention too because I told them that I updated my insurance and the insurance is up to date. It keeps on reminding me. And then so what happened was is that because well, at first, I signed back on to Uber and I do another trip, to pick somebody up. And and it's actually not acting up this time. But then I decided to sign off again, sign back on to see if it's still playing this shit. And then it was playing this shit. So then what happened was is that I figured, you know what, since I got a podcast to film today and I want to get some rest, I didn't want to come in filming this podcast looking like a sleep deprived zombie. So I figured, I'll get some rest and I'll wake up, and that's when I started my day, and that's when I started getting to work on doing this show that I'm doing right now. And the first thing I did is I woke up around maybe 9ish, had my coffee, and just started prepping everything. Because as I was saying before, I usually have to get this ready to go at least 45 minutes prior to the time that I start. I mean, I stick to schedule as much as possible unless I have to make any changes for whatever reason. I mean, and the thing is with the film times that I have and the fact that I can film remotely is I can film even on days if I'm not in the best of mood. Even if I'm sick, I could still film because I'm not going to get anybody else sick. Unless it was one of those unless it when it gets to the point where I start having multiple guests in the studio at the same time. I mean, most of my times I have guests that are going to be remote, but I might have times where I'll occasionally have guests come on inside the studio on my couch when that's all set up. But that's all a waiting game, as you know. Like as I was saying before, got to get the rent paid off. I'll buy the decor. This place will look nice, and we'll take it from there. But for now, it's just I'm filming in a room that looks like it's just filming in like an office, as if like it looks like I'm more or less on a Zoom call and not a podcast. But some podcasts, don't have that same type of background that I necessarily have. All right, so since it's getting close to 12:15, and I know if I get on another subject, I'm gonna get past 12:15, and I told everybody that 12:15 is when I take my lunch break, and you know that's what I'm gonna do. I'll see you guys in a half hour.
You made somebody's heart break, but now I have to let you go. I have to let you go. You left a stain on every one of my good days, but I am stronger than you. I have to let you go. No one's ever turned you over. No one's trying to ever let you down, beautiful girl. Bless your heart. I got all disease deep inside that makes me feel uneasy, baby. I can't live without you. Tell me, what am I supposed to do about it? Keep your distance from me. Don't pay no attention to me. I got all disease. Feels like you're making a mess. You're on wheels in a black dress. You drove me to the fire. Left me there again. Every little thing you do is tragic. All my life was magic. Beautiful girl, I can't breathe. I got all disease deep inside the makes me feel uneasy, baby. I can't live without you. Tell me, what am I supposed to do about it? Keep your distance from me. Don't pay no attention to me. I got all disease, and well, I think that I'm sick. But leave me be while my world is coming down on me. You taste like honey, honey. Tell me, can I be your honey? Be strong. Telling myself that it won't take long till I'm free of my disease. Yeah, I'm free of my disease. Free of my disease. I can't live without you. Tell me, what am I supposed to do about it? Keep your distance from me. Don't pay no attention to me. I got heart disease. Yeah, well, I think that I'm sick. My world is coming down on me. You taste like honey, honey. Tell me, can I be your honey? Be strong. Tell myself that it won't take long till I'm free of my disease. Yeah, I'm free of my disease. Set me free of my disease. Yeah, put songs together, ain't no puzzle like Yahtzee. He's into this one now, to get wild and remote. Say, let me introduce myself, what is good? I'm a people like a local boy. I call the birds, look at what's using the skill. Get it in school, like we do. It's yours on the other night, this shit just ain't funny. Got fat bass lines like Russell Simmons, so funny. Crying time, you know, every roll, and the whole my day, it goes to be like that. That's my favorite shit. How can the stairs go but I'm looking at it? I got the haircut correct like Anthony Mason, and I got the RG right up to Penn Station. Penn Station, I'm on in there. Listen over here, you get the ball back. I said we're good because he's trouble me. I'm like, do you rip the right on with the grip so long? But give me that good time. If this gonna be that kind of party, I'm gonna stick my dick in the mashed potato. Been thinking with the big so you need. I've been running from the arrows, now it's time to speak. much good sense that we just need to ignore. Send me in, I had a pass the first one, one shit, sound the gun, the black beast, the best. I'm a big dog, I must be a reps. I go home, come on, and do it out to the road. I'm already, I know the shit is gonna work. I grab around the ball, I go, get on. Alright, team out there, the winners are ready, check out a crowd. Catch me on the driving lane, on the ladies' trust, the hurricane, take heaven. We the rest believe in the same thing, I'm going to a tour, taking people's on the TV in my garbage shoes. Being ran and I'll post the chip, shut the hip on me up like green, green straight, like this, yeah. I got the team, the zero, I got my love clubs, now oil, I'm ready to check, but even to myself, a two, I'm going to the green, I got the good thing. So it's like it's crazy. I'm working on my job because I'm going to play. I'm looking for golf gear from head to toe. And then he's on the nation and he's shaking the pizza. Told him up, light it up, nigga. Birdman, motherfucker. Clips, yeah. Ain't no nigga. What you smell? Money smell. Coca-Leaf plank. Getting slashed straight in the border. Come on, little one, handle your business for me, boy. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. I heard he snitching on a player, man, say it ain't so. Even as a youngin', they consigned me to blow, which explains why I'm with my weight and gold while they was taking baby steps from an 8 to an O. Word in the streets that the NB is me, enough ice on that watch to make a nigga lose sleep. Magnified face of the bitch see clearly. 9 on the waist, hit the bitch up the billet. I'm known for the flip for that cocaine. I'm heavy in the street like the 7 Series Beamer, man. Hit 'em with the Nina, man. Or that 4/5 guaranteed to lean you, man. Whoa, I'm the reason that your block is vacant. Malicious or hit ya just to make a statement, bitch. Cause in cash money, who ain't rich? Don't compare me to you, nigga. You ain't this. Whoa. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. Stunner and Patty King, the worldwide push. Birdman, nigga, leave the guns in the bushes. Bitch, getting up bricks. Unload on the gusset. Balls of the ghetto with the round shake. Cooking shit, one throw one. Nigga, flood the block. If I don't go to jail, nigga, birds on flock. Niggas sitting on the turtle. Bitch, get off the pot. The bird just landed, so the hood gon' rock. Hood flips, big chips. The product Gucci shit. Oh, mommy, you fly bands, the wide skinny lips. She takes my flight. She holds my weight while the pork was staked out from state to state. It ain't nothing to a baller, baby. Pay the cost, big money, heavyweight, Birdman, hood boss, baby. Stepping on my line, I sure a little something. They call it young, come out in the black crook touch. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? He was talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. Another soul lost, had to make his shirt match my eyes, blood colored Porsche. The rims match, of course. Blood hit his Timbs, it reminded me of them. Glistening, wrist on chiller, gun in the same palm, a gorgeous killer. I put this on my lord, my niece was 4 when she felt chinchilla. I passed the short for that shit that made fiends rise from the dead like Thriller. Gangster, hustler, at night still found time to kiss my mother. Live like I'm dreaming, kick my my feet up. Gun poke my waist, remind me of my demons. So quit your yapping before I get the clapping and have your body parts mix and matching, fella. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? I ain't talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? What happened to that boy? People talking shit, we put a clap into that boy. Hey, that is, nigga, that happened. Birdman, Clips, Young Smith, VA, you know, Uptown, nigga. We go anywhere with this bullshit. We put the bricks, you understand? Hey, nigga, put this puzzle together. Hey, for real, hear this shit, nigga. 1,000 pieces, 100, you know, let's get this money. Hey, nigga, I smell something. Go leave plants, bitch, you know. Get money, motherfucker. However you want it, you can get it, pimp. From gangsta to blood, nigga, take it how you want it, nigga. We get it how we live. Ain't nothing but the thug thing, nigga. Money thing, motherfucker.
So what's up, man? Coolin', man. Chillin'. Yo, you know I had to call you. You know why, right?
Why?
Because, yo, I never, ever called and asked you to play something, right?
Yeah.
You know what I want to hear, right?
What you want to hear?
I want to hear that Wu-Tang joint.
Wu-Tang again?
Yeah, again and again.
Smoke on the mic like smoking Joe Frazier, the Hellraiser. Raise hell with the flavor. Terrorize the jam like troops in Pakistan. Swinging through your town like your neighborhood Spider-Man. So tick-tock, keep ticking. When I get to flipping off the shit, I'm kicking. The Lone Ranger. Red danger, deep in the dark with the art, to rip the charts apart. The vandal, too hot to handle your battle. You're saying goodbye, like to be careful. Up next, inspect the decks on the set. The rebel, I make more noise than heavy metal. The way I make the crowd go wild. Sit back, relax, won't smile. Ray got it going on, pal. Call me the rap assassinator. Rhymes rugged and built like Schwarzenegger. And I'ma get mad deep like a brat. Blow up your project, then take all your assets. Cause I came to shake the frame in half with the thoughts that wrong. Shit like math. So if you wanna try to flip on the next man. Cause I'll grab the clip, man. Picture with 16 shots and more I got. Going to war with the melting pot.
It's the method man for short, Mr. Map. Move it on your left. And set it off, get it off, let it off like a gat. I wanna break food, cop me back. Small change, ain't putting chain in the game. I take game and blow that nigga out the frame. And like bang, my fella live forever. Niggas crossing over like they don't know no better. But I do. True, can I get a soul? Enough respect due to the 1-6 ooh. I mean, oh, yo, check out the flow like a Hudson or PCP. When I'm dusting, niggas off because I'm hot like sauce. The smoke from the lyrical blood make me
Oh, I grab my nut, gets cool. Here comes my styling style. True, B-A-B-Y-U. To my crew with the... Yeah. Come on, baby, come on. Baby, come on, baby, come on.
Yo, the best protect your neck.
First thing first, man, you with the worst. I'll be sticking pins in your head like a nurse. I'll attack any nigga who's slacking his Mac. Come fully packed with the fat bucket stack. Shame on you when you step through too. The old dirty bastard, straight from the Brooklyn Zoo. And I'll be damned if I let any man come to my center. You enter the winter, straight up and down. That shit I can. You can't slam. Don't let me get fooled on the man. The old dirty bastard is dirty. Thinking they so unique, rolling with the knife of the creek. Niggas be rolling with a staff, ain't saying gas, fight my style. I fight the
Out loud, my style is wild, so book me. Not long is how long that this rock took me. Ejected styles from my lethal weapon. My fence that rocks from here to Oregon. There's more again. Catch you like a psycho flashback. I love cats. Rap was a gun. You ain't bust back. I'm going shit all types of shapes and sounds. And where I lounge, my stomping grounds. I give an order to my people across the water to go and snatch up props all around the border and get raw like a shooting star. Shoot off all. People look like about the west of all. Point blank as I kick the square biz. There it is. The fucking pros and there it goes.
Yo, chill with the feedback block. We don't need that. It's 10 o'clock, ho. We the to see that. Feeling mad hostile. Ran out hostile. No one like Christ when I speak the gospel. Show with the holy roll. Then attack the globe with the buckets. Style the ruckus. 10 men committing mad sin. 20 other chicken, I break the shit. Slaves move bangs like African drums. Coming around the mountain when I come. Crazy flamboyant for the rap enjoyment. My plan increased like black unemployment. Yeah, another one dare. Took a genius. Take us the out of here. The war is
was too slamming for these coke killer labels. So ain't had hits since I sing here table. We doing all the shit like King did Abel. Now they money's getting stuck to the gum under the table. That's what you get when you misuse what I invent. Your empire falls and you lose every cent. But trying to blow up a scrub. Now that corner is as white as a 20-watt light bulb. Should've pumped it when I rocked it. Niggas so stingy, they got short arms and deep pockets. This goes on in some companies with majors that's scared to dump the pump things. First of all, who's your A&R? A mountain climber who plays an electric guitar, but he don't know the meaning of dope when he's looking for a suit and tie rap that's cleaner than a bar soap. And I'm the dirtiest thing in sight. Matter of fact, bring out the girls and let's have a mud fight.
You best protect your neck. You best protect your neck. You best protect your neck. You best protect your neck.
Yeah, this album is dedicated to all the teachers that told me I never amount to nothing. To all the people that lived above the buildings that I was hustling from, that called the police on me when I was just trying to make some money to feed my daughter. To all my peoples in the struggle, you know what I'm saying? It's all good, baby, baby. It was all a dream. I used to read Word Up magazine. Salt and Pepper and Heavy D up in the limousine. Hanging pictures on my wall. Every Saturday, rap attack, Mr. Magic Molly Mall. I let my tape rock till my tape pop. Smoking weed and bamboo, sipping on private stock. Way back when I had the red and black lumberjack with the hat to match. Remember rapping Duke? The hard. You never thought that hip hop would take it this far. Now I'm in the limelight cause I rhyme tight. Time to get paid, blow up like the world trade. Born sinner, the opposite of a winner. Remember when I used to eat sardines for dinner? Peace to Ron G, Brucey B, Kid Capri. Funk Master Flex, Love Fuck, Star Ski. I'm blowing up like you thought I would. Call the crib, same number, same hood. It's all good. And if you don't know, now you know. I made the change from a common thief to up close and personal with Robin Leach. And I'm far from cheap. I smoke stuff with my peeps all day. Spread love, it's the Brooklyn way. The Moet and Alizé keep me pissy. Girls used to diss me. Now they write letters cause they miss me. I never thought it could happen, this rapping stuff. I was too used to packing ice and stuff. Now honeys play me close like butter play coke. From the Mississippi down to the East Coast, condos in Queens, indo for weeks. Sold out seats to hear Biggie Small speak. Living life without fear, putting 5 carats in my baby girl ear. Lunches, brunches, interviews by the fool. Considered a fool cause I dropped out of high school. Stereotypes of a black male misunderstood, and it's still all good. And if you don't know, now you know. Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. When I was dead broke, man, I couldn't picture this. 50-inch screen, money green, leather sofa. Got 2 rides, a limousine with the chauffeur. Phone bill about 2 G's flat. No need to worry, my accountant handles that. And my whole crew's lounging. Celebrating every day, no more public housing. Thinking back on my one-room shack. Now my mom pimps an act with minks on the back. And she loves to show me off, of course. Smiles every time my face is up in the store. We used to fuss when the landlord dissed us, no heat. Wonder why Christmas missed us. Birthdays was the worst days. Now we sip champagne when we thirsty. Damn right, I like the life I live. Cause I went from negative to positive, and it's all. And if you don't know, now you know. And if you don't know, now you know. I see. Yeah.
Yo, all you homebrides out in Bronx, this one's for you. Pump up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume, dance, dance. Put the needle on the record. 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 When the drum beats go like this. Pump up the volume, pump up the volume, pump up the volume, dance, dance. I've been trying for so long to let you know how I feel. If I stumble me one more night, one more night, 'cause I can't go forever. Give me just one more night, just one more night, oh, one more night, 'cause I can't go forever. I've been sitting here so long, wasting time, just staring at the phone. And I was wondering, should I call you? And I thought, maybe you're not alone. Please give me one more night. Give me just one more night. Oh, one more night. 'Cause I can't go forever. Please give me one more night. Oh, just one more night. Oh, one more night. 'Cause I can't get forever. Give me one more night. Just one more night. One more night. 'Cause I can't wait forever. Like a river to the sea, I will always be with you. Whenever you say no way, I will follow you. Give me one more night. Give me just one more night. Oh, one more night. 'Cause I can't live forever. I know there'll never be a time you never feel the same. And I know it's only right. But if you change your mind, you know that I'll be here. And maybe we both can learn. Give me just one more night. Give me just one more night. One more night. 'Cause I can't wait forever. Give me just one more night. Give me just one more night. One more night. 'Cause I can't wait forever. It's not just me, no, you feel it too. You know and I know we lost a lot of. It's like our love cut the line in two. We're on different sides though, lost in the echo. Our lips are moving, they make it work. We're separators, we make it worse. 'Cause I'm not listening, and you're not listening. No, we try to fix it, it never works. We go breaking up like cell phones when I speak, 'cause you don't listen when I talk. Loud tone, nothing but that high note when you speak, 'cause I don't listen when you talk. Ooh, yeah, don't think we'll ever get better, better. It's worse with every letter, letter. Loud tone, nothing but that high note on repeat, 'cause we don't We're trying to share conversation, communication. I'm hearing me, and you're hearing you. We're on different islands, just as a side things. I live for moving and making work. Oh, we're trying to beat us to make it work. Cause I'm not listening, I'm not listening. And you're not listening, I'm not listening. We go breaking up like cell phones when I speak, cause you don't listen when I talk. Dial tone, nothing but that high note when you speak, cause I don't listen when you talk. Ooh, yeah. Don't think we'll ever get better. It's less of every letter. Dial tone, nothing but that high note. I'm repeat, cause we don't listen when we talk. Our lips are moving, they make it worse. Make it worse. Worse than the riddles, we make it worse. Cause I'm not listening. You're not listening. You're not listening. Oh, we try to fix it, it never works. Oh, we go breaking up like cell phones when I speak, cause you don't listen when I talk. I know nothing but that I know when you speak, cause I don't listen when you listen. Don't think we'll ever get better, get better. It's worse than every letter. So nothing but that I know. We don't listen when we talk.
Figure out if I can get these headphones in here. All right, folks, I'm back. I guess it's time to get back to talking the good talk. We got like the first half is over with. Now we're on to the next half, and it's. I honestly think that because the past couple of two of the last episodes were all filmed on Sundays, and I'm starting to think that like once I get to the point where you know once I get to the point where I can start filming more often, I think what I'm going to end up doing is when I is when I get to the point where I could is when I get to the point that I could start filming more often. I'm thinking of like just the way a lot of these people who have daily podcasts, talk shows, morning shows, variety shows, whatever you want to call it. Normally have it where like they'll film like every day, like Monday through Friday. But I'm thinking what I'm going to do is if I'm going to do a 5 day a week schedule, I'll have Sunday as one of my filming days. And I'll have one day during the week that I don't film that I can maybe take care of errands and just do like shit that you can't really do during regular work when you work regular work hours, like go to the bank and take care of stuff. I'm thinking I'd maybe have Wednesday as a day off. Like my filming dates would be Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, off Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, off Saturday. I haven't decided yet, but I'll worry more about that when the time comes. But as of right now, it all gets worked around my work and personal schedule. Which, speaking of which, another thing I want to touch upon is you guys probably had seen that I was gonna do like a little New Year's Eve special thing that tomorrow night 8 o'clock, which I'm just gonna have to let you know that if anyone was looking to tune into that, that's I'm gonna have to cancel that, but I'm not sure as to in regards to the cancellation of the New Year's Eve thing, I'm either gonna reschedule it for either tomorrow at 11 a.m., maybe Tuesday at 11 a.m., or it might just be canceled altogether and this be the last talking stock of 2024, and I would see you guys next year. I haven't decided what I'm gonna do yet. I probably, what I want to do more than anything else is squeeze, is adjourn that to either tomorrow morning or Tuesday morning, or maybe just have it like a time that I wouldn't usually film, like maybe 1 to 4 or 12 to 3 or earlier in the morning, or I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet, but I'll be like in touch with that. If you follow any of my, socials, my Facebook, my, if you follow the Talking Stock Facebook, I'll have like all that information like posted on there, like in regards to what's going. I mean, the show, the New Year's Eve show I was gonna do tomorrow night, the 8 p.m. That part's canceled, but whether or not it's being rescheduled or not is something I'll touch base upon. I do want to note that the shows that I have scheduled for Wednesday, January 1st, which is New Year's Day, and the following Sunday, January 5th, those are still on. Those are still like on schedule, like and will be filmed. And I'm also adding a show on Saturday, January 11th. Because what happens is that for like not this week, but the following week, I'm going to be busy every day from Monday through Friday, so I won't be able to film anything. I mean, I might try to squeeze like maybe a show during on one of those days during the evening to make up an exchange. I just got to see what my schedule's like. It's just honestly, I'll say this: like trying to film this, trying to have a permanent filming schedule when you're working this around like your work schedule and your personal schedule isn't the easiest thing to do. But I'm gonna fit it in somehow, and this is something that I really enjoy doing. I just but I'm really looking forward to the time coming. My viewership grows and people start tuning in more often. And one thing I'm looking forward to more than anything else is when I have people that will just start live chatting into my show, which you can already do, but it's just it's don't have the viewership at the moment. But once I do, once I could start getting like thousands tuning in or tens of thousands tuning in, however much it grows, then I'll have people like just chiming in. I mean, anyone can just give a shout out, just say what's up, or you can give a shout out to the music, be like, hey, you're playing like song that's cool, blah blah, whatever you want to say. I mean, even if you want to like insult me, just go ahead, but don't expect that I'm going to give such a pleasant response in return. But I just think that honestly, I'm not too worried about getting any like any trolls necessarily coming onto my podcast. I mean, I know if I grow, of course, I'm gonna have rivalries with everybody. Everything I'm saying is all stuff I knew going into this, but it's just I figured I'd mention it anyway while I'm on here because it's just this is what we do. This is what this podcast is. It's talking the good talk. So when people ask what kind of podcast this is, that's pretty much what I. It's pretty much like a free form variety podcast. Covers a broad range of topics. I mean, the explanation I explained pretty much. The whole thing of the whole 9 yards of what this whole podcast is all about, and it's it's something that I'm on episode 4 and looking forward to many more coming. And it's trying to think what else I had to cover. I mean, I know there's something else. It's just trying to remember what it is. I mean, what I gotta start doing is start coming up with a more detailed outline and putting together stuff in an order. But the thing is, sometimes you go off script because you probably know as I go on. I've been going on certain tangents throughout the podcast, like I was talking before about Ubering, and I was talking about the asshole passenger. I mean, oh no, another thing that I just remembered too is that the only other time as I had another like passengers. Like, see, every time I've had every time I have cool passengers, and every time I have dickhead passengers, I pick up on the vibe that they're giving right away. I had another incident where it was on Thanksgiving Eve when I was picking somebody up from a bar out in Farmingdale, Nassau County, which has become quite a happening place. Like for those of you familiar with Long Island, will know that that's happening places. Patchogue's one of them. Bay Shore's become one of them. Port Jeff's become one of them. I mean, for some of you folks not from Long Island, you're probably like, what the fuck are those locations? Where are they? I mean, if you're not from Long Island, you're not from Long Island. And I feel the same way anytime I listen to, a podcast of someone from another state. Like if I listen to someone who lives it, like one time I was listening to a podcast that comes from another fellow Long Islander, and he was talking something about hitting into deer or deer running across the road, and I mentioned that Long Island has a big problem of it, and one of the people that's a regular on his show, like he's not even so much a guest, but he's more like I think the way he films his show is that he has like regular people that are usually on and they all like chat amongst each other. It's like he mentioned that he lived in Indiana. I thought these were all like, close friends of his that live within his immediate circle, but apparently this dude lives in Indiana, and he says that there's a deer problem too. And I believe it. I believe any part of the country that has like, woods and stuff like that. I mean, our deer problem here on Long Island has just gotten so out of hand the last, few years that, it's like if you ever hear this saying like, a deer in the headlights, like when you don't know like what to say about something where you're just like, it's like I feel like a deer in the headlights. Except the only problem is that, some of these people like, actually hit into deer. So the headlights did touch upon the deer. But with me, I've never had a deer go within 50 feet of my headlights, which is good. But I always know on some of these roads to just like, keep up with like the slow pace of, so that you don't hit into things. And I mean, one time when I was Ubering, I took somebody, I took like, a couple home. They live in this little like village on the North Shore of the Huntington part of Long Island called Asheroken, and apparently it has its own village police, and it's like, and they're very like tough on the speed limit. Like here in Long Island, well, New York State, speed limit is 55 miles an hour, but anyone who's driven on the LIE probably knows that nobody that does 55, not even the people in the slow lane. So even like if you're in like if you're in like the right lane of traffic, like the slow granny lane, of like people of like slow grannies driving, they're not even doing 55. They're doing 60 or 65. But then you go into like the left lane. See, with me is I have this thing where I don't go above 70 or 75 because, I want to stay within a certain amount that I almost know I won't get pulled over. And I actually did get pulled over one time for the funny thing is one time I was actually doing 87 on that LIE and I got pulled over and he wrote me for doing 80. So I guess, the speedometer must have just, he must have caught me at 80 and didn't see like, when I probably accidentally sped up 7 miles an hour. Well, in this case, he was on, he was on a motorbike. He wasn't, even in like a regular, but they do like hide out like that, and I understand, that they need to do their job. And of course, I was wrong for speeding. Yeah, I mean, but what I did was is that I had the money at the time. I paid money. I had an attorney go, to court for me, and he got it chopped down to because it was my first and only speeding offense. He got it chopped down to a parking ticket, which is good because like now it's just and that's all that's on my record. I mean, points go on your record, and it's just and he wiped those points away too, which is good because doing 80, going like because when you go a certain amount over the speed limit, you get pulled over. You get points on your license, and in the state of New York, once you get 11 points on your license is suspended, and an automatic license suspension would come if you did like 40 miles over the speed limit, which meant that if you got pulled over doing 95 or more on the LIE, you automatically lose your license. And some of you folks, from Long Island, have probably dealt with that yourself. Not me, thank God, but it's just you all learn your lesson, and I was one of those people too. That's why. All right, so that's why I don't care if I do 70, 75. You barrel ass like behind me. So what? Go ahead of me. Go ahead. Pass me. Pass me, you motherfucker. But if you get pulled over by a cop, I'm just gonna laugh right in your face. That's pretty much just what I'm gonna do. And All right, so I was just sipping on some coffee because I made myself some coffee, had a little snack while I was gone. I actually spent a lot of this lunch looking at other social platforms to see how you, as the listener, would be listening in. I figured during my little half hour break where you listen to music, that would be the best time to do it at. I figured it would be the best time to check in and see, like, on how you as the listener, and I noticed it was somewhat lagging, and I don't know if it was my internet or I don't know if it was just my computers, if I don't know if it was just the internet in my apartment and the way it picks up on like my computer, because I was having issues in like one of the first couple episodes, might have been the very first one, where my Wi-Fi was lagging and it was just, excuse me, getting going in and out of the recording. That there was actually a time where I was doing a live recording and it actually, like, cut me off and I had to log back in. So there was a part during the recording where it was just, you didn't know what was happening. But that's the problem with all this type of stuff too. I mean, we live in a society where we're pretty much almost strictly reliant on technology at this point in time. But when you over rely on technology, you also, don't always take into account what type of glitches can go into play. Like, like internet could be out. Like, if my Wi-Fi just wasn't working at all, and we had, like, if we had a blackout, for example, I don't even know if I'd be able to film this type of thing. But luckily, we haven't had one. I think the last major blackout I remember was in 2003, like summer of 2003. I just remember, like, not having power, and I just remember, like, how crazy it feels, like going to sleep in in the living room with candle lights. I remember that day pretty well, and anyone that was alive and lived in New York during that summer would remember that day quite well and everything. I just remember, like, people come. I remember some kid lived down the street, came with a spray bottle, and I was just spraying myself because we were hot. It was just, because the AC went off too, because it was just, we had a blackout. Well, duh, but just figured I'd mention, because if you didn't live in, if you didn't live in the New York tri-state area at the time, or the East Coast, or weren't alive at the time, or weren't in the area at the time, you won't even know what, even what you wouldn't even know the least bit of what I'm talking about. But all right, I just realized I forgot to touch upon, like, what I was saying before about with the Uber passenger. Like, like I already talked about that one dickhead about, like, I let off at JFK, but I had another one where I was out in Farmingdale, which is, another busy community, and this is on Thanksgiving Eve, which is the busiest bar night of the year. That's the biggest going out night of the year. So I go and pick this kid up who needs a lift home to Lindenhurst. And so it's like, I'm driving, I'm on Main Street, and, I'm trying to locate where this kid is. And I tell him that he's got to walk over to my car because I had to pull over because I needed to let an ambulance go through. New York, just like probably most states at this point in time, you have to move over for emergency vehicles. So an ambulance needed to get by. I needed to pull over. I first started explaining to him the reason why I had to pull over to the spot, and he's thinking that, like, oh, like, I can almost just see that he just wanted me to be able to turn around and pick him up at an exact spot. And you can't make a U-turn on one of the busiest streets on one of the busiest nights of the year, when there's not only just a lot of cars on the road, but a lot of police cars need to get by because, of course, on a busy night like this, there's shenanigans. So shenanigans only leads to arrests and stuff like that, and then ambulances getting by, more emergency cars, fire trucks, ambulances needing to get by too. So I go and pick him up, and we're in the car. He's silent the whole time. Look, if you're one of the silent passengers, I don't take that as a bad thing because I understand that you probably just want to get home for the night, and I respect that. Like, usually I don't start talking, unless I don't usually start, like, blabbing away unless you start talking to me first, and then we have a conversation. I mean, because I don't know if you're the conversational type or not. I mean, you might be comfortable, you not be comfortable. I don't know you. I never met you. You're the first time I ever saw your face. if I, if I think you're a cool cat, I hope we, we run into each other again. If I think you're an asshole, well, this is hopefully the only time that I'm ever gonna see you, ever again. That's just how I think of it, and it's, but anyway, back onto my story. So I pick him up, we start driving along, and I'm taking him home. I'm following the map that it gives me. Nothing's going on here, quiet the whole time. So then I end up like, I'm in like, I'm on Route 109 in, New York State Route 109. I'm heading, southeast bound on 109. I'm in the middle lane of driving on the road. So I go and make a turn into the right lane because I'm getting ready for the next mile when I have to make a turn on one of the road. And I sideswipe one of the cars. So we pull over and we do like, what we typically do on the accident exchange. Now I sideswiped into his car. So, I mean, the good thing is so far nothing's become of this incident because it was just, you know, a minor fender bender. But like, so I swipe into this guy's car. We pull over on the side of the road. I apologize for like, why he did that. And, of course, he's another unapologetic asshole, that I had to deal with. He's getting all mad at me. He just starts checking his car to see if everything's running smoothly, and he's saying like, "Oh, I have a dash cam, and I'm gonna show it to the cops." Like he's some kind of fucking badass that, oh, I'll show it to him, and it's gonna be all over for me. Not necessarily the case. I mean, yeah, yes, we got the police, and they filled out a report. I mean, all it came down to was an exchange report where, we have each other's, where they put together, where they took, my license and registration, same with the person who I hit. They filled out the information, told me, like, what to do if you want to pursue insurance claims and blah, blah, blah. But and because it was on Uber time, I also had to like, file an accident on their claims too. But everything's been resolved since, I'm still on the road, they're still on the road, nobody was hurt, which was good. But now in regards to like the kid that I had like in my car, like, he just wants a ride home and he's looking for alternative rides because, like when you get into an accident, what happens is that like you have to end like, the ride and well, the trip automatically ends. So he's looking for a ride. He's getting all mad. He goes behind one of the buildings and he wants to get picked up by somebody else. So I don't care, like, the fact that he's getting picked up by somebody else. Because you know what? I mean, I was already getting bad vibes about him to begin with, but it's just, and then the person who I sideswipe starts taking pictures of my license plate. Again, he's thinking like he's some kind of fucking badass, like, oh, I'm gonna get the plate and it's gonna be all over for me. First of all, it doesn't really work that way if it's only a fucking, fucking minor fender bender and it didn't even do much and nothing's become of it so far. The only thing that's happened was is that like, because when I reported the thing through Uber, which is what you're supposed to do, their insurance company contacted my insurance company, and my insurance company knew nothing about what was going on. So I just had to like, they called me on a Wednesday night when I'm at work, and I had to tell them my side of the story, but so far nothing's become of it. So that leads me to believe that his car probably didn't have any damage. He didn't pursue a claim through his company. I didn't feel the need to do it through mine because I don't notice anything that was really like, I didn't see any damage that was done to my part of the car. So we're all safe in that end. But just the fact that you just start getting in this mood where you start thinking, oh, it's gonna be all over for me. And another thing I'm not worried about too is that like the person whom I sideswiped is only a few years older than me too. Like he's, according to like, the report, his date of birth, I think he's like almost 8 years older than me. So he's within a similar age group, and we all live paycheck to paycheck. So he obviously doesn't have money to have an attorney to go ahead and fabricate some kind of story that like he got injured because of like, the ride that we were in. And I say this because, a lot of times like, they say, looks can be deceiving. And I've heard of cases of, people who like, get injured along the road, and they use that claim as a way of like trying to like, come after somebody. I mean, I'm not worried about that happening, like I said before, but if it happens, it happens. But it's just, there's assholes in this world that I don't let it bother me. I just figured I'd share it because it's just, you know something I wanted to touch upon because we were on the subject of driving for Uber. I told you about one dickhead passenger. I told you about another, but then I get a lot of cool cats too that come along the way, ask me all kinds of questions. They tell me all kinds of like funny stories. Like sometimes I don't like doing Friday and Saturday nights because you deal with too many drunks and party like type of people, but that's the time to make money. And it's just when it comes down to making income, aside from my regular job, you can't really do DoorDash too much anymore because it every time it used to be like just 2 years ago, every time I log on, the map was always pink and I was able to get get a good amount of gigs through DoorDash. But now every time I go online, the map's always gray and I can't even schedule it. And there's a time over the summer when I ordered food from DoorDash and I said to myself like, how exactly does I said to myself when it comes down to to DoorDash, how are these people making any money? Like I'm thinking that these people are literally working on call 12 hours a day, not even making $200 out of it. I mean, I could be wrong, maybe because they scheduled so far ahead of time. Maybe they're still making good money, but I wasn't making good enough money on it, and Instacart went the same way, and I find that Uber's where it's at. You see, it's one of those things where at one point in time, people were making so much money with DoorDash, Instacart, all those other things that people actually, people who lost their jobs during the pandemic that were doing this because they lost their job during the pandemic ended up, not going back to their job, I guess. If it was a temporary loss where you were only laid off because of the pandemic, but then you got your job back, not all of them went back, but a lot of the ones that saw how much money they were making compared to what they were making at the job that they had before they lost it during the pandemic, they saw that how much money they were making off of it. So they figured, I would do this, all the time. And people also like that the flexibility of making your own schedule. And that's what I like about Uber, and that's what I like about Lyft. That's what I like about any of these gig type of jobs. You want to earn money, you sign on, and you get to work. You be your own boss, But same exact time, you do have to keep track of things like your mileage. You have to write off all your expenses because if you don't do that, you're gonna get slammed with taxes. I think part of the reason, believe it or not, and for the year 2023, I actually got money back from both the IRS and the state because the amount of stuff that I had written off was enough to the point that I didn't even owe. I was pretty much tax exempt, and a lot of it also came from that I made enough money from my W-2 job. That see, I think what they look at is how much taxes are being withheld altogether. And because what it comes to show is that if you're strictly self-employed, you're going to get slammed with taxes because it's a matter of you got to either pay them quarterly, or you got to pay them at the end of the year. It just when you're not working, when you're not because when they're taking taxes out of your paycheck, it goes down on their record that you're paying your taxes. But if you're self-employed, they don't know as to what you could possibly be up to. So they usually get slammed more than anybody else. But what happened with me is that because of how much I had in write-offs and the fact that I made enough of doing my regular W-2 job, is that I had enough money that I actually got money back from both of them. But I was hoping that I would either get a check or a direct deposit. But what ended up happening is that I owed money I still had outstanding balance in taxes from the 2022 year. So what they did was, this is both the IRS and the state, is they took the money that I was going to get back and they used it towards it. I'm not mad about that because I figured it's only gonna chop down the amount of time because I was already on a payment plan with them anyway, and I just figured that I'm already on a payment plan with them anyway. All it's gonna do is that it's gonna reduce the amount of payments. It's gonna reduce the amount of length that it takes to pay this all off, and it's really not much of a big deal. It's not a lot of money. I enrolled in a payment plan that I find that is affordable. Again, I had to go with a certain amount because I had to budget myself out. I can't have too much going towards it because then I won't have any money, and I'm just and speaking of which, I mean, you see, one thing I didn't like about last night is how the glitch that happened within the Uber app is that The glitch that happened within the Uber app was that it was saying that my vehicle wasn't. See, what happened was, as I was saying before, I was driving last night and it signed me out as one of those periodical, like, take a take a selfie of yourself to prove that it's you. That's that's a normal procedure. They do that to everybody, and they do that because they want to make sure that you're the only one using your account. Because I guess there's a lot of over time. There's been a lot of shared accounts, and they just want to make sure that there's people aren't doing that. That it's not like a brother and sister, two brothers, a husband and wife, husband, wife, two friends doing it. They just want to make sure there's no account sharing of any kind. They just want to make sure that you're not sharing and that your account is being used by you and only you, and you're not sharing it with anybody else. That's just what they want to do. And that's a normal procedure. But instead of putting me to that, it was saying that my vehicle wasn't eligible for the New York City suburbs. And I know that's a crock of shit because I drive for them all the time. So you can't just say, oh, it's not eligible. But it turns out to be that was just a glitch. But still, the whole entire thing of having to, like, pull over somewhere on a side street because I don't want to be in front of someone's house because if I'm in front of them for too long, you know, who knows what they're gonna be like. I don't know who you are. I don't know if you're gonna tell me to get the fuck off your property. I don't know if you're not gonna give a shit that I'm in front of them making a phone call. But I just pull over in front of some of the few empty lots that are within that area. Within like the neighborhood Holbrook, Lincoln Avenue, Coates Avenue, Grundy Avenue, Broadway Avenue, all those little streets. I found a spot somewhere. I pulled over and I took care of this phone call, and it ended off with they told me to take a screenshot, did that, and what happened was is then I went back online. It did it to me again. Originally my plan was is that I was gonna like go out all night and just, maybe just sleep after my podcast after I filmed this podcast today. But I figured instead I would end up just going to sleep so that I could get some rest, so that I could film this, so that I'm not like a sleep deprived zombie by the time I come on here. Which Speaking of which, I'm on my third coffee cup. I mean, I need to have energy to keep myself going. I mean, I'm the type of person where if I don't have my coffee, then I'm just not like myself. I'm not like myself. Sorry, I'm just checking in on one of my one of my feeds. It's always good to do every once in a while. Sorry, I'm just checking a few things. Oh, looks like we're all good. Just wanted to check it. It's always good that I do this because it's just some of them like I don't know as to what because in some of the smaller platforms that are not connected by Omni Chat, I still have to check to make sure. I mean, yeah, I didn't get any like live chat replies, but that's just again I'm not like that well known yet, but it'll only be a matter of time. I know the time's coming pretty soon. I mean, especially if the first episode, as I said before, someone already said, I wish there was more podcasts like yours. And that was from the first episode, wishing. So I guess he must have picked up on, how the formation of the podcast is going to go. You start off, you have your first half, then you have like your music during your break, and then you come back and do it. Because, well, and it might also be the uniqueness too, because if you notice, most podcasts usually involve like, an interview with someone. It's usually like between a host and a guest for like a good 2 or 3 hours, and it's just them, or it's just a group of people the entire time. I intend mine to be like when I have guests on, like have it divided into two sessions. You got session one from 11 a.m. to 12:15, and then you have lunch break from 12:15 to 12:45, and then session two is, I mean, session one, session two are very similar, but it's a session where like I'll talk and then I'll have guests come on. Like if I have no guest, I'll just blab the whole time. If I have guests, I will. Which, speaking of guests, like if anyone's watching and wants to be a guest on my show, you're more than welcome to reach out and we'll set a time to come on here. If I'll also be reaching out to people. Most of the people I think I'm going to reach out to first are the ones that are already within the like social media community, whether it's the podcast community or it's but it's going to be more or less the people that aren't as well known, because trying to get someone that like is has like millions of viewers or is always busy to come on my podcast is probably going to be next to near impossible. But I'm talking about the ones that have like maybe tens of thousands of views, maybe hundreds of thousands of views. But every once in a while, like what's been happening, like the other day, I came across to someone who made their first YouTube video. What I'm gonna end up doing is I'm gonna like and I have on my laundry list to comment on that video. And what I want to do is when I comment on that video is I'll tell them like a little bit about myself, how I'm fairly new to this too, and maybe I can get them to come on my podcast, and we'll take it from there. We'll build a base, and that's how we do it. And it's just ideas that I have out there. I mean, whatever way it goes is the way it goes, but it's just what's gonna happen is what's gonna happen. And I know only good things are gonna come out of this, which is what I'm happy about, that things seem to be going the right way. So I just had to scratch my head. Let me just check to see if there's anything else you see what I do is I put together an outline of things that like of what I could potentially cover. I mean, a lot of times I don't always have time to put together everything, which is why I kind of go off script. But I'm working on that, and I think by the time episode 5 comes, there's gonna be like I'm gonna have it all set up where it's gonna be more of it's gonna be more fluid. It's gonna be more like you know it's gonna have like a set lineup in terms of like it. And the only times, I mean, yeah, I mean, when you talk about going off script, I mean, of course, when people live chat in, it's gonna happen. And when I have guests coming on, I don't know as to what they're gonna say, because I'm not excuse me, I'm not them, and I can't, I don't, I'm not them, so I don't know what they're gonna say. Let me just check. All right. Yeah, so I touched upon the whole thing that, like see, it's a good thing that I remembered that, like, when I filmed on Friday, I said I was gonna go to the kitchen and go get something, and I never did that. And I showed you as to what that is, and I'll show you a little bit more of an outline. I mean, I'm planning on writing more of these out, but as of right now, it's just that like what I'm going to do is I'm going to be carrying these in my pocket so that when I'm like out and about talking with people, I could just share like, details about my podcast. This is going to be mostly for people who aren't on like, who I don't follow on social media, who I'm not friends with on there, or people that I start talking to. They seem like, a good person. And hey, I have this podcast. Want to come check it out? And the whole thing of having on a piece of paper, as I said before, has to do with so it's less likely they'll forget about it. Because if I tell them about this podcast and I tell them the name of it, unless they pull it up on their phone then and there, they're gonna forget about it by the time they go home for the night. But now if you give them a piece of paper, they're less likely to forget, because all they have to do is just take the piece of paper, fold it up, put it in their pocket. They come home for the night, they empty out their pockets, they'll see this, and they'll be like, they'll either do one of two things with it. They'll probably put it on their desk and as like, or wherever, like their dresser, as a way of like, yeah, I'll watch it later, or maybe they'll just plug it in right now, or if they're running out of things to watch, maybe they'll watch it as they're heading to sleep. They'll either watch it on their phone while they're sleeping, or watch it on their TV while they're sleeping, or they won't, maybe they'll watch it the next day. But still, it's like if it's on a piece of paper, they'll know how to do it. They'll know how to spread the word about it. But it's just, I wrote out a few of these. I know I already showed you earlier, but I have a couple of them. And I don't know as to how well this camera is picking things up. I mean, because I only see what I see. I don't know as to how other people could see the same exact thing too. And I do plan on writing out more. It's just going to be one of those things where I'm going to keep these in my pocket, and if I feel like the time is right to share things with about like my podcast, I'll go ahead and hand it to them. And it's funny is that like on Christmas Eve, I was telling I was telling my parents and I was telling my aunt and her boyfriend about this idea that I have. And the funny thing is that like, my father was telling me on Christmas Eve night that like there was a time like, it was a little probably I don't remember when it was, but it was like over a year ago where where he had to go to like, our old house with the new people that bought the house from it because they had a question up because they needed their cesspool pumped out and they weren't sure as to where the cesspool was, so that they contacted him, because they wanted to you know ask about where it was so they know like where to have it pumped out. So he went over there and like showed them as to where it was. And I think some kid that lived on the block over, like the next block over from like the house from the street that I grew up on, this there was some kids that lived in the house. I mean, I was, myself or my late brother, we were never really friends with them because they were, a lot younger than us. They were born like, pretty much around the time, during like the prime years of our childhood. But like, I think, they're a little bit older now. I don't really know how old they are, but one of those kids has a podcast and he put down the information of the podcast on in the form of like a fortune cookie. And my father has that because when I was telling not just him or but everybody like my family that was over on Christmas Eve on over my parents' house on Christmas Eve, I was telling them about this idea, and that's when he showed that to me, and I thought that was pretty cool. They suggested the idea that I should put it on a business card, so it looks more professional, and that's on my laundry list to do. But I mean, as of right now, it's just again, it's the beginning of my podcast, trying to get a little bit more money, set aside towards it. I have a lot of side projects that I'm working on, trying to also enjoy time with family and friends. It's just trying to balance things out here. And I must say, it's not the easiest thing, but if you walked in my shoes, you would probably, or knew what my shoes were like or how or what shoe size fit, you would probably think that I'm actually doing quite well with this. Oh, and other things on my list too is I also want to do is that I mentioned before that aside from doing podcasts, I want to start creating content for social media and have that posted. I want to do an apartment tour and stuff like that, which I will share during my podcast. The fact that I got a camera is excellent because now that I have a camera, I can film when I'm out and about, and I could just like if I go somewhere and I want to just like film, I could have that. I can make a video out of that, and I'll be sharing all my videos during my podcast so that people who are watching live can see it, and then they can also watch the video individually. And that's how I grow my base, and that's how. And one thing I didn't even know for a while, I used to always wonder to myself, like, if this, I say to myself all the time, like, why didn't I have this idea of creating content earlier? And I think it had a lot to do with that. You see, I had no idea that, people who created content for these type of platforms were actually getting paid for it. Like I thought to myself, like, where do people have all these time? Do they not work? But it turns out to be that that is their job, and they do make money off of it. I mean, little term I, got. Hold on, little term that like I got introduced to not long ago is monetization, where you get paid a certain amount for the type of material that you create. I mean, there's rules towards it, and a lot of times there's certain rules where certain videos won't be monetized. Like if you get like copyright strikes, it won't be monetized. I mean, if you use like music like I'm doing, it doesn't mean you won't get monetized. It just means that what could get in the way of having your material monetized would be stuff that like I know I've had a couple of videos where my video is partially blocked in some countries because some countries block the use of certain material. I mean, that's not the end of the world to me because if it's not the United States, Canada, or any other country that I really want to talk to people in, it's not like the end of the world for me. But I'm just saying that like it does affect monetization. But if you don't have, even if you use copyright material, as long as you don't have a copyright strike against you, or a copyright warning or whatever they call it, you could still be monetized for your material. And my materials, such as apartment tours, I did a video of what I got for Christmas. I have my video from 2023 from when I was gonna get started, being a content creator. But then you see, I've actually had this idea quite often, off and on, but a lot of times, like, when I would try to start it, like I tried to make an attempt at starting this in 2020 when we were like quarantined during the pandemic, and I was watching a lot of, you know, YouTube and other social media content, like, excessively. I had the idea of doing it, but I tried to do it one day and I was just so like, because, I fell into like a dark hole and wasn't, feeling good, like, mentally during that time. So I tried to film a video of me, like, typical of me, like, talking like I am right now, and I was very socially rusty that I'm like, when I start like filming it, it's like I tried so many attempts and I'm like, I give up. And then so that idea got put on the back burner because then I just had to deal with like then I was just dealing with regular everyday life. We started coming out of, the situation, and then I started, I had work and stuff like that on top of, like every other everyday life. So that idea kind of got pushed aside, and then it resurfaced again. Like, by the time I got, because then I also had the whole moving situation, which got in the way too. And when I had to, like, start, like, packing my stuff, for when I get my apartment, and when they, like, got their own place, we had to start packing our stuff up, and so that got in the way. And then by the time I was settled into my new place, I had a little more time to myself, so I started watching content again, and the idea resurfaced. And then in 2023, I made another attempt at it, but then I got busy with life, and that idea once again got put on the back burner. And it wasn't just busy with life. I also saw how difficult it would be to film the type of content that I want to do on just a cell phone. I mean, I know a lot of people use, their iPhone to film the content that they want to create, but you can't do it with strictly a phone. You need other material to produce it too. And I mean, and the fact that I got a camcorder for Christmas this year, I think was a really great gift because now I can actually go out and I can actually film, and I can, it has Bluetooth capability. I could sync it to the computer. Well, actually, I don't know if it has Bluetooth, but I do know it has a cable that you could hook to the computer. So worst comes to worst, if I have to do it the old-fashioned way, so be it. But it'll end up on the internet somehow anyway. And by that point in time, I could be a hit content creator. I mean, I'm already public figure because I want to start creating content, and so those privacy days on social media are bye bye for me. But oh well, it's just it's there's always, like, pluses and minuses to every situation. And sometimes not being incognito is one of them, and that's not the worst thing that in the world. So I'm not concerned about it. It's just I just thought I'd mention what it's like that. Okay, so I think I covered everything I wanted to talk about today. I'm gonna end this episode off right now. And as I said before, the show that I was gonna originally do tomorrow night is canceled. I'm not sure as to if I'm gonna do one on Monday or Tuesday during the day yet. I haven't decided on that yet. But what I'm gonna end up doing is, I'll touch base via the Facebook page on what the status is on that. And if not, if I don't film anything on Monday or Tuesday, There will be a show on Wednesday or New Year's Day. So if you don't see me on one of those days or both of those days, I'll see you guys next year. If not, I'll see you then. For now, take care of yourselves. Keep talking the good talk, and I'll either see you. I'll see you tomorrow. See you Tuesday, and if not, I'll see you next year. Peace out.